The Luxembourg gardens sway in gentle silence. Joggers pass statues. Lovers drift beneath chestnut trees. The city hums with life, modern, indifferent. Yet beneath its stones the past still pulses. Just beyond the fountains, a weathered plaque bears his name, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. In quiet bookstores by the Seine, his words still whisper from old bindings. Rousseau is not gone. He lives in the murmurs of courtrooms, in the breath of protest chants, in the way we raise our children to ask why. So as we walk these cobbled streets past marble and memory, ask yourself, who taught us to ask why? Because in the 18th century, in this very city, one man dared to say the world was not as it should be, and for that, it burned. Paris, 1762. Fog drapes the city like a funeral shroud. Horses clatter over cobblestones, bells toll in distant chapels, but behind a shuttered window near the Seine, a quill dances in silence. A man writes by candlelight, ink bleeding across the parchment as though torn from his soul. Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains. The man's name is Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and these words, soft as breath, will one day split the world. In glittering halls 70 miles west, Versailles is a mirage. Here, chandeliers weep crystal. Harpsichords hum lullabies for kings. Louis XV dines on pheasant glazed in saffron, while peasants chew roots in the mud. France is a kingdom of masks. Elegance conceals rot, ceremony hides cruelty. 3 estates govern the realm, but only 2 feast. The 3rd estate, the workers, the farmers, the hungry, carry the weight and receive the lash. Far from the courts of France in modest Geneva, Rousseau was born to a watchmaker and a dying mother. His father read him romances and let him roam the woods. But by 10, Rousseau was alone, driven by restlessness, abandoned by comfort. He wandered through France, Italy, and disillusionment. He worked as an engraver, a footman, a music teacher. No place held him. But in that loneliness, something sacred stirred. He listened not to kings, but to trees, to birdsong, to the ache of being human. Rousseau believed man was once good, noble in his nakedness, kind before corrupted. In a village, he watched farmers till with oxen. He listened to the songs of washerwomen at the riverbank. He saw joy in simplicity and chains in cities. Property, pride, and politics, he called them poisons. He didn't yearn for savagery, but for sincerity. Nature was not wild. It was truthful. It didn't lie the way palaces did. In Emile, Rousseau wrote of education, not for obedience, but for freedom. A child, he said, must not be molded, but nourished. To raise free citizens, one must first protect their curiosity. The book was banned. Why? Because it declared the church unnecessary. Because it taught parents to question kings. Because it whispered that a different world was possible if we dared raise children to see it. Then came the Social Contract, a slim volume, a thunderclap. Rousseau asked, "What gives rulers the right to rule?" His answer, only the consent of the governed. He envisioned a society where citizens were both authors and subjects of the law, where laws were not decrees from above, but agreements among equals. This was not anarchy, it was harmony. But to kings and bishops, it was heresy. The reaction was swift. Geneva exiled him. Paris outlawed him. Copies were seized and fed to public bonfires. Princes feared the ideas. Priests feared the questions. Rousseau fled to the countryside, then to England, then into himself. He wandered forests with a walking stick, scribbling notes in the margins of silence. He became a ghost in his own lifetime. Rousseau wrote letters to imaginary enemies. He believed the world conspired against him. But in truth, the world was simply catching up. His ideas, once scorched, now spread like wildfire. Even in taverns and sewing rooms, people whispered his name. Revolution was no longer unthinkable. It was inevitable. By the 1780s, the ground beneath France began to shift. Poor harvests shriveled wheat. Bread prices soared. In village markets, empty stalls stood like gravestones. Mothers bartered hairpins for flour. Musicians sang laments of tax collectors and torn boots. The people starved. The king spent. But even as their bellies cried, their minds opened. In Arras, a young lawyer named Maximilien Robespierre devoured the social contract. To him, it was not a philosophy, it was scripture. Rousseau had named the ideal citizen. Robespierre would become him. He shaved his face each morning with the discipline of ritual. He wore simple green coats, ate modestly. He believed virtue was not softness, but steel, and France would be reborn in his image. The Estates General assembles. The Third Estate breaks away, declaring themselves the National Assembly. On July 14th, the Bastille falls. But more than a prison crumbles, it is fear that fractures. In countryside and city, the people awaken as citizens. And Rousseau's whisper becomes a roar. The Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen is proclaimed. Law is the expression of the general will. A direct echo from Rousseau's pen. Liberty, equality, fraternity, etched into parchment and stone. The monarchy trembles. The world watches. Not all was fury. In the early years, joy bloomed like spring. Weddings filled town squares. Children danced in fields where gallows once stood. Civic feasts replaced royal banquets. The world was still hard, but now it felt shared. Hope wove itself into daily bread. But who interprets the general will? What if the people disagree? The Jacobins had an answer. They would decide. And Robespierre, pure, unswerving, believed himself its prophet. He purified the revolution with fear, and soon with blood. Robespierre stages a festival of the Supreme Being, a Rousseauian civic religion come alive. He climbs a paper mountain in Paris to preach virtue. But the people do not cheer. They murmur. They fear. A man claiming virtue in robes of power is rarely safe. The guillotine becomes the symbol of liberty, every suspect a traitor, every trial a formality. In Rousseau's name, they kill nobles, priests, poets, friends, even Georges Danton, who once wept at Rousseau's grave, even children, even silence. Rousseau, now canonized, is buried in the Pantheon beside Voltaire. Irony lingers, two rivals, now martyrs of the same republic. But by then, his words are twisted, wielded like blades. His dream walks barefoot in a field of skulls. In July 1794, Robespierre is arrested. His voice is gone, his jaw shattered. Dragged to the scaffold, he dies beneath the same blade he once worshipped. The terror ends, not with celebration, but with a sigh. But Rousseau does not die. His ideas sail to America, echo in Haiti, whisper through Russia. Wherever people rise and ask, who rules us and why? His shadow stirs, not as a tyrant, not as a saint, but as a mirror. In the villages, life resumed. Fields replanted, fiddles tuned, mothers sang again, fathers mended shoes. The fire had passed, but its warmth and its scars remained. The people did not forget who gave them the courage to ask, what if the world could be ours? To follow the path Rousseau walked, begin in Geneva, on a small island where his statue watches the river drift, quiet as his thoughts once were. Then, journey to Paris, to the Pantheon, where he rests among France's immortals. His tomb, a silent echo of freedom carved in stone. Hold the Social Contract in your hands, the book that once lit minds like torches. Read Rousseau and Revolution by Will and Ariel Durant, a sweeping tale of the man who believed in the soul of the people. Watch the French Revolution, 1989, where ideals clash with blood and beauty. Or close your eyes and listen to the BBC's In Our Time, Rousseau, as if the voice of a century whispers once more. These are not just memories, they are sparks waiting for your breath to awaken them. At Weaver's Nest, we don't just recount revolutions, we relive them. Through echoes of the past, we rediscover what it means to be human. If Rousseau's fire reached you, subscribe, like, and share this journey. Join us as we follow history's whispers toward tomorrow's dawn. Next week, on Echoes of the Guillotine, Episode 3, The Women of the Market March. When hunger drove mothers to the gates of Versailles, the world changed forever. Steel met silk, and silk surrendered. You won't want to miss it. The fire Rousseau lit was never meant to destroy. It was meant to illuminate, and though it burned, it also revealed that freedom is fragile, that ideas are eternal, and that sometimes one quiet voice in a dark room can set the whole world alight.